It's bordering on being bigoted if you are going to look at the imminent complete ethnic cleansing of Gaza. And instead of having your anger be heard and directing it at Republicans and Donald Trump, turning around and yelling at your neighbor voter. President Donald Trump doubled down on controversial plans for the Gaza Strip on Thursday, saying the Palestinian enclave would be turned over to the United States by Israel once the war there ends. Also, horrible framing of this. The war there? What the f*** are you talking about? The comments in a string of posts on Truth Social followed his proposal for the U.S. to take over and develop Gaza, which were derided by rivals and even questioned by close allies earlier this week. Israeli officials did not immediately comment on Trump's latest comments, though in an interview on Fox News on Wednesday, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu praised Trump's initial proposal. Asked to comment on Trump's statement on Thursday, a spokesperson referred to NBC News to the Fox News interview. Later, Foreign Minister Gideon Saar said Israel does not have details on Trump's Gaza plan, according to Reuters. I mean, he just made it up, right? Donald Trump's just like riffing off the top of his head. I mean, I'm sure this is the plan that his administration was going for, but they don't have any details for it. I don't even think that we're ready to announce it, and Trump just like couldn't help himself. Trump suggested that Palestinians could be resettled in far safer and more beautiful communities. This is so disgusting. With new and modern homes in the region, adding fresh confusion to discrepancies in his stance on the future of Palestinians in Gaza. Yeah, so they the hell out of Gaza for like 14 months, and then they say these communities are so dangerous, they're so ugly, you should go to where it's safe for you. You should go to where there are beautiful homes for you to live in. Trump also said that no soldiers by the US would be needed. Stability for the region would reign. Trump's Truth Social post comes after why are we even like, dude, I swear there's a conspiracy in the media to advertise for Truth Social. Why are we saying Trump's Truth Social post every time? Just say his post and then provide a link for it. You don't need to do an advertisement for Truth Social. I hate saying it. Comes after contradictory comments Tuesday on whether he foresaw Palestinians being able to live in a future Gaza that he described as the Riviera of the Middle East. He initially suggested that Palestinians could be permanently removed before adding they would be able to live there alongside others after Gaza was rebuilt. Yeah, so I think that's just him being like, oh yeah, Palestinians, like they're going to be gone. And then some advisors like, Trump, can you say that they can at least come back after like 5 years? And he's like, oh yeah, 5 years of living in beautiful, safe homes. Trump's proposal to seize control of Gaza and potentially oust the roughly 2.2 million Palestinians who live there has sparked anger, fear, and disbelief across the Middle East and around the world. Okay, so we can take a look at this. So this is an update live. Trump says Gaza will be turned over to U.S. by Israel after the war. Let's take a look at this video. I don't know what this is.
So let's speak to Osama Hamdan, who's a senior spokesperson for Hamas, joins us now live. So this meeting between the Qatari Prime Minister and Steve Witkoff, as I say, Qatar.
Oh my God, Al Jazeera is interviewing a senior member of Hamas, dude. Oh my God, we have to blacklist Al Jazeera. Actually, they should all be like, but from public life. They should all be in a video game from public life, because this is unconscionable. They're interviewing a member of Hamas and they're not saying, do you reject the idea of killing little children? Wow, someone tell Ethan Klein about Al Jazeera. He should really make a content nuke about Al Jazeera.
Message after will be good. If it was the important, I think the important message for both is supposed to be delivered that the Palestinians, they are seeking to have their rights. And they will do their best to have those rights. If it was delivered by the international community to them, that would be good. If not, they will resist for that. They will fight the occupation to have their rights back. Anyone can understand the clear message after 15 months of Israeli in Gaza, that you can't defeat the Palestinian people. You can't defeat this nation, which was struggling for their legitimate rights for more than 75 years. This is the idea. Give the Palestinian people their rights and end the occupation. This will end the sufferness of the people of Palestine, and it will create stability in the region.
And what is your perception of everything that Donald Trump has been saying in recent hours a suggestion, for one, that Gaza should be cleared out and the US will take it.
Well, I can say that in three main simple sentences. First of all, it seems to me that Mr. Trump is dealing with the Palestinian issue as it's a kind of real estate land. He doesn't understand that Gaza for the Palestinians is their homeland. It's not a real estate. So no one will sell this land. No one will accept to have anything instead of this land to be and to live there. The second issue, he's ignoring the fact that there is an occupation, and this occupation has committed a against the Palestinians for the last 15 months. And instead of helping the Palestinians, he is talking about helping the occupation. So he has to turn back and to act in the right direction. Biden administration have supported the Israeli, and the outcome was nothing except the of thousands of Palestinians, destroying more than 80% of Gaza. So he has to make an end for the occupation instead of transferring the Palestinians. The third point, clearly, it's important to understand that if you decide to transfer the Palestinians from their land, you are creating a new equation in the international community, that any people can be transferred, any country can be destroyed, any occupation can be continued. If you accept the transfer of the Palestinians from Gaza and West Bank, that means after a few, maybe years, the Israelis will start talking about transferring the Jordanians from Jordan, maybe the Lebanese from their homeland.
So let me ask you, what do you also make, sorry to jump in there, but what do you also make of Israel ordering the army to prepare for the voluntary departure of Palestinians? What do you make of that? And how many Palestinians would actually leave Gaza voluntarily, do you think?
Well, I think no one would leave Palestine by himself voluntarily.
Yeah, so anyway, when we talk about this, what this man is saying is 100% correct. It's like, if you want to have peace in this region, what you need to do is have the Israeli army withdraw, end the occupation, and that will create stability. We need to talk about the point, which is basically saying, if we do this and we ethnically displace all of the Palestinians, this is going to be a horrible precedent that is being set. And I agree with him here. And it's not just that the Palestinians are being, it's going to allow Israel to continue that. I think that this is a real turning point right now. We are basically on the precipice of complete ethnic displacement or peace. We have a ceasefire deal right now, and it's a very shaky ceasefire deal that's going on between the Palestinians and the Israelis. And really, we're at a fork in the road. Israel can double down on their genocide with the support of Donald Trump, or they can double down on withdrawing their troops and have this region have some sort of long-lasting peace. And then I also think that it's just like this kind of blatant imperialism, land grab intent actions that we're seeing out of Israel right now, it needs to become a thing of the past. And we cannot have Israel have no consequences for their actions whatsoever, because if they have no consequences, then it's never going to become a thing of the past, and it's going to become a viable strategy to empower your country for the future. And it's extremely sad, but like, what are their plans post-Palestine? Their plans post-Palestine is to do the same thing to Syria, do the same thing to Jordan, do the same thing to Lebanon. They're just going to be expanding forever, pretty much. They're going to be expanding forever, and then when they finally stop in expanding their actual borders, they're going to continue to work to undermine these states that do rise up and try to resist them. So it's a very dark time. And I just also need to say here, when we're talking about liberals who are being smug and saying, so many Muslims voted for Donald Trump, aren't you stupid little Muslim people voting for Donald Trump? You need to slap them, because Muslim voters that voted for Donald Trump are not the enemy right now. Even white supremacist voters that want Muslims to be exterminated in the Middle East and want Israel to expand into greater Israel so we can have some kind of second coming of Jesus Christ, they are not the ones that we should be looking at right now. We can't even be blaming the actual white supremacist voters that are both anti-Semitic and Islamophobic. Who we need to be blaming is Donald Trump. We need to be aiming our efforts at Donald Trump and other members of the international community. So, like a few months into I don't remember exactly when. I think it was like maybe like 6 months ago. I went to this meeting, and it's like, how can we resist against how can we make our voices heard to show that we resist against Palestine, like against in Palestine? And I was talking to some people, and they're a little bit like politically naive, and they're like, well, I think that we need to recenter ourselves and let other people speak, because, you know, as a member of the United States, I feel like we can be a little bit too self-centered, and this is like a international community. We should really highlight the international aspect of all peoples rising up and resisting against Palestine, resisting against the atrocities in Palestine. And it's like, yeah, that's a good notion, but you are missing the fact that the United States is the only one shielding Israel. It's the only one actually defending Israel's actions, and we are literally funding Israel as well. So, as a member of the United States, it seems incumbent upon us, at least while Joe Biden was president, it seems incumbent upon us to actually try to push for change inside of the country, because, you know, we are living in the country that is basically having this run and facilitated. So it was like, yeah, 6 months ago when Joe Biden was president, a lot of power was on us. But I think at this point, when we have a president who is so willing to tank international relationships and is so oblivious to basically human rights and cries for human rights, it becomes a different dynamic. It's basically, and I'm not saying the United States is a lost country, but the internal protesting movements of the United States is almost a lost cause. Donald Trump has all but made it illegal to protest against Israel. And at this point, we need to start looking at reducing the United States' power on an international scale. And that does involve rising up in other countries. That does involve having citizens of other countries that are U.S. allies making their voices heard at their displeasure of the United States, and making their leaders realize that they can rise up and resist against the United States. They can stand up to this country, because the United States does need to be power checked right now. That's just the end of discussion. When you have an authoritarian leader running the United States, it's no longer really feasible for a member of the U.S. to rise up and make their voice heard and try to change policy that way. You need an authoritarian leader who only cares about power to be dealt with by power in return. That being said, I honestly think it's bordering on being bigoted if you are going to look at the imminent, complete ethnic cleansing of Gaza and turn around, and instead of having your anger be heard and directing it at Republicans and Donald Trump, turning around and yelling at your neighbor voter who happens to be Muslim that voted for Donald Trump because Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were both facilitating and not taking a stand against that in any way, and yelling at them. I think that is honestly borderline being bigoted. And the only reason I'm saying borderline is because I can understand that due to the futility of actually making a stand against Donald Trump, and the idea that it is so difficult to not only make your voice heard, but have your political action have any kind of meaningful change. That is so futile with an authoritarian president like Donald Trump that it feels like you are actually able to make a difference by yelling at Muslim voters and people that valued the Palestinian and either abstained or even voted for Donald Trump. It feels like you are able to accomplish more by yelling at these people that are much more accessible to you. However, the fact is, yelling at them is going to have less of an effect on the country than yelling at Donald Trump, even though the effect of yelling at Donald Trump is almost going to be negligible. It's just making yourself feel better. It feels like you're doing something. It feels like you have an I told you so moment, when really there is not a meaningful difference in what Trump is doing than what Joe Biden is doing. And I'll say this until I die, but even though there's not a meaningful difference in what they're doing, there is a difference. And I would always vote for the lesser of two evils, which is why I voted for Kamala Harris.